Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Imagine dedicating 50 years of your life to one singular purpose, hearing and sharing God's voice. Today, we're diving into the extraordinary journey of James Goll, a pioneer in prophetic ministry who's shaped how millions approach spiritual encounters.
And what's fascinating is how this journey began in Missouri, of all places, back in 1993 with a small ministry called Ministry to the Nations.
Wait, so this global movement started in Missouri?
Yeah, and what's remarkable is how it evolved. The ministry later became Encounters Network in Nashville, and now it's known as God Encounters Ministries, reaching people worldwide.
That's quite a transformation. What drove this expansion?
Well, James Goll's approach was unique. He combined deep biblical understanding with practical tools for spiritual growth. He's authored more than 50 books, including influential works like The Seer and The Discerner.
50 books! That's incredible productivity.
And each one serves a specific purpose. He's particularly known for his teachings on prophetic intercession, which, by the way, he defines as not just praying to God, but praying with God.
That's an interesting distinction. Can you elaborate?
According to Goll, prophetic intercession is receiving prayer requests directly from God and praying them back to Him. It's about aligning with God's heart rather than just presenting our own requests.
You know, that reminds me of something I read about his connection to the Jesus People movement in the 1960s and 70s.
Exactly. That's actually a crucial part of his story. The Jesus People movement was this incredible wave of Christianity that swept through North America and Europe, and it heavily influenced Goll's approach to ministry.
How so?
The movement emphasized supernatural experiences similar to those in the Book of Acts, things like the baptism of the Holy Spirit and spiritual gifts. This became foundational to Goll's teaching.
And he's still active today, right?
Very much so. In fact, 2025 marks his 50th anniversary in ministry, and he's celebrating it with a special gathering in Franklin, Tennessee.
That's quite a milestone. What would you say is his most significant contribution?
I'd say it's his approach to spiritual journaling. He's developed this unique method that combines three distinct expressions: dialoguing with God, recording revelatory experiences, and documenting life lessons.
That's fascinating. How does that work in practice?
He encourages people to journal sermon notes, dreams, visions, even angelic visitations. It's about creating a record of your spiritual journey that you can reflect on and learn from.
And this has influenced how people approach their spiritual lives?
Absolutely. His teachings have helped countless people develop a more structured and intentional approach to their spiritual growth.
You mentioned earlier about his books. Which ones would you say have had the biggest impact?
The Seer and the Prophetic Intercessor are probably his most influential works. They've become standard texts in many prophetic training programs.
And what's the core message in these books?
They focus on helping people understand and develop their prophetic gifts while maintaining biblical grounding. It's about combining supernatural experiences with practical wisdom.
That's quite different from the stereotypical view of prophetic ministry.
Exactly. Goll has always emphasized the importance of balance, combining the supernatural with sound teaching and practical application.
Tell me about his current work. What's he focusing on now?
He's very active with his God Encounters Today podcast and continues to write and teach. His recent focus has been on what he calls the fourth great wave of the Holy Spirit.
Fourth wave? What does that mean?
He sees it as a new movement of spiritual awakening, building on previous waves like the Great Reformation, the Great Awakenings, and the Charismatic movement.
That's a pretty significant claim.
It is, but Goll has a track record of accurately discerning spiritual trends. He was involved in the early days of the modern prayer movement that led to thousands of 24/7 prayer houses.
Speaking of trends, how has his ministry adapted to modern times?
He's embraced technology while maintaining his core message. His ministry offers online classes, digital resources, and virtual mentoring programs.
That's quite progressive for someone who's been in ministry for 50 years.
And that's really been one of his strengths, adapting to changing times while staying true to his foundational principles.
What about his personal story? I understand he faced some significant challenges.
Yes, one of the most profound was losing his wife Michal Ann in 2008 after 32 years of marriage. Yet he continued his ministry while raising 4 children.
That must have been incredibly difficult.
It was, but he's often taught that personal trials can deepen our spiritual understanding and compassion for others.
Let's talk about his approach to prophetic training. How does he teach others?
He emphasizes what he calls prophetic activation, practical exercises and tools to help people recognize and develop their prophetic gifts.
Can you give an example?
One of his key methods is teaching people to recognize different types of prophetic experiences, dreams, visions, impressions, and what he calls prophetic intelligence.
Prophetic intelligence. That's an interesting term.
It's his way of describing the ability to discern and interpret spiritual insights in practical, applicable ways.
How has this approach influenced other ministries?
His methods have been adopted by numerous prophetic training programs worldwide. He's really helped standardize prophetic ministry training.
That's quite a legacy.
And it continues to grow. His recent focus has been on raising up what he calls a prophetic generation for the future.
What does he mean by that?
He's investing in training young leaders who can carry forward the principles of prophetic ministry while adapting them for new challenges and contexts.
That sounds like he's thinking well beyond his own ministry.
Exactly. He's always emphasized that true prophetic ministry is about building for the future, not just addressing the present.
As we wrap up, what would you say is James Goll's most enduring message?
I think it's his emphasis on combining supernatural experiences with practical wisdom. He's shown that prophetic ministry can be both mystical and grounded.
That's quite a balance to maintain.
And that's really been his gift, helping people navigate the supernatural while keeping their feet firmly planted in reality.
It's amazing to think about the impact one person's ministry can have over 50 years.
And he's still going strong, continuing to teach, write, and mentor the next generation.
What a remarkable legacy.
Indeed. His journey from a small ministry in Missouri to a global prophetic voice really shows what's possible when someone stays faithful to their calling.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Co-Pilot Podcasts. James Goll's story reminds us that sometimes the most profound impact comes from simply staying true to your purpose, one day at a time, for as long as it takes.